Hello everyone and welcome to today's edition of the Cheat Meal presented by Deep Fried Draft. My name is Brian Bosarge. This is going to be one of the bigger episodes of the Cheat Meal we've done in a while. Short on preview but long on talking about the Crazy College Football Coaching Carousel. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. First I want to talk to you about Coasters and Castles Travel, and specifically Rebecca Bosarge of Coasters and Castles Travel. Email her at rbosarge@coastersandcastlestravel.com. Use her knowledge of Disney, Universal, any trip like that you are too busy to plan. She'll do it for you for free. All you do is email her, rbosarge@coastersandcastlestravel.com. She'll plan it for you. She'll book your hotel. She'll book your stay at the resort. She'll even do your fast passes for you if you want to. She'll take all the worry away from you, and you can enjoy your vacation without having to stress. rbosarge, coastersandcastlestravel.com. You can read it behind me. Now, let's get to some college football injuries. Going back to Thanksgiving night in the Egg Bowl, Mississippi State junior quarterback Nick Fitzgerald broke his ankle. Successful surgery. Is announced he'll be returning for the 2018 season. He'll be doing it for a different coach. We're going to get to that in a minute. Miami Hurricanes senior tight end Chris Herndon, torn MCL, going to miss the rest of the season. He had just accepted an invite to the Senior Bowl, but he's out for the season. Get to some underclassmen declarations right quick. San Jose State junior linebacker Frank Ginda, a guy I've not studied at all yet. We'll get to that. I will have to go back and watch a couple of San Jose State games, I guess, to get an idea of what kind of player he is. But Frank Ginda is declared for the draft. Texas had a trio declare. Potential top 10 pick offensive tackle Connor Williams has declared he will not participate in the bowl game. Linebacker Malik Jefferson, another potential first-round pick, and safety Deshaun Elliott, all from Texas, all leaving early. At least one I know is not going to play in their bowl game. The other two may not. Miami junior running back Mark Walton, he's been out for about the last 3 or 4 games with an injury, but he has gone on and declared for the draft. So he's played his last game at the U. Let's get to some preview action here. 7 games on the schedule this week. A lot of the bigger games, or maybe not the bigger games, but a few I'm not going to watch this week. The Pac-12 championship game, Southern Cal Stanford, watched it earlier this season. Watched them play earlier this season. Auburn and Georgia, watched that game 3 weeks ago. And Oklahoma and TCU, watched that game like 3 weeks ago. So I'm not going to watch those 2 teams again against each other. Just not going to do it. Or not, for review purposes anyway. I may watch them this Saturday, but I'm not going to review them. Another rematch that's going to take place in the American Championship, I didn't watch earlier this year, but I'm going to watch Saturday at 11 a.m. on ABC, is Memphis, and this game will be played at UCF. Matchup to watch in this game will be Memphis senior wide receiver Anthony Miller against junior corner from UCF number 19, Mike Hughes. Was impressed with the cover skills of Mike Hughes last week against USF for the 5'11", 191-pound corner. So let's keep an eye on that matchup. 3 FCS playoff games. Would have had 4, but another rematch that I've already seen, South Dakota State and Northern Iowa. I chopped that game off because I realized I watched it about 6 weeks ago. But at 1 p.m. on ESPN Extra if you're a DirecTV customer, or watch ESPN if you're not. Stony Brook at James Madison. Matchup to watch in this game will be for Stony Brook, number 71, Tamon Paris, a senior offensive tackle, 6'5", 320, has accepted an invite to the Senior Bowl. And we're going to see him matched up against James Madison, senior edge rusher, number 93, Andrew Ankra. 6'4", 251-pounder. So that's the matchup to watch there. 1 p.m., Kennesaw State at Jacksonville State. For Kennesaw State, it's their 3rd year playing football, and they finished right now they're 10-1 on the season, and in the second round of the FCS playoffs, facing the powerhouse of Jacksonville State. For Jacksonville State, a couple of defenders to keep an eye on. Number 5, senior safety Saron Neal, 6'1", 205. He's accepted an invite to the Senior Bowl. And number 40, senior edge rusher Darius Jackson, 6'3", 237. Our third FCS second round matchup we're going to watch this week is South Dakota at Sam Houston State. That's at 2 p.m. For South Dakota, I currently don't have any players for the Coyotes on my watch list. For Sam Houston State, it's all about getting another look at senior quarterback Jeremiah Briscoe. 6:30 on ESPN2 in what is the de facto Sun Belt Conference Championship game, Troy at Arkansas State. For Troy, we'll get to see, get to look at senior quarterback Brandon Silvers. And for Arkansas State, I like their edge rusher, number 11, Javon Rollin Jones, a 6'2", 244-pounder. ACC Championship game, 7 p.m. on ABC, Clemson versus Miami. For Clemson, I like what I saw out of linebacker Dorian O'Daniel last week against South Carolina, senior linebacker, 6'1", 220. Good in space, good at open field making open field tackles. For Miami, I want to get another look at their senior edge rusher, number 9, Chad Thomas, a 6'3", 265-pound edge rusher. Bad news came out of practice for Miami today, where their leading receiver, sophomore Amon Richards, went down with an injury. Looks like he's may not be able to play Saturday. We'll see as that news comes out. 7 p.m. on Fox is the Big Ten Championship game, Ohio State against Wisconsin. For Ohio State, we want to get a look at number 54, senior guard Billy Price, 6'3", 315, and a couple of defensive players for Wisconsin. Number 5, senior edge rusher Garrett Dewey, 6'3", 246, accepted a Senior Bowl invite this week, so I want to study him a little bit. And senior defensive lineman Alec James, number 57, 6'3", 272. So that's going to do it for the preview portion of this week. Let's get to the fun stuff and talk this college coaching carousel. This will all be out of whack in order. I don't know what order this is in. I just started writing stuff down today. But let's start with Arkansas, where Brett Bielema was literally fired as he was walking off the field after their game against Missouri. Pretty shitty way to go, but Bielema's out. Just didn't win. It's the syndrome in the SEC where if you're not Nick Saban, you're not winning, and that's why you're seeing such high turnover in the Southeastern Conference. But Bielema's out. Who's going to be in? Well, big money Arkansas boosters want Gus Malzahn to come home back to Arkansas. But if Auburn beats Georgia this week, they're going to be in the national championship. They're going to be in the college football playoff. Hard to see Gus leaving. I find it hard to believe Gus would leave anyway with the team he's got built at Auburn. The recruiting class he's got put together. He's been putting recruiting classes, including this upcoming class he's putting together at Auburn. And just the talent he's got coming back, he'll have coming back next year. I find it hard to believe that Gus Malzahn would leave Auburn for Arkansas. If you really want to go home that bad, I guess so, but I find it hard to believe. But who else besides Gus would get the job? I think the name to watch there is Memphis head coach Mike Norvell if they fail to land Gus Malzahn. For Nebraska, Mike Riley is out. And he's been pretty much a dead man walking for about 6-7 weeks now. Who's going to be in? Have to think it's Scott Frost here. He's just waiting for the regular season to play out at UCF. He turned down the Florida job, as we'll get to in a minute. Only one other job I could see keeping Frost away from Nebraska, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I have to think it's Scott Frost. If it's for some reason not Scott Frost, I think Mike Leach, because of his connection to the athletic director at Nebraska, will be could be in play. Arizona State, Todd Graham is out. And news broke about maybe 2 hours ago that Herm Edwards, ESPN NFL analyst, last coached in the NFL about 9 years ago, hasn't coached in college since 1989. But Herm Edwards is going to be the head coach at Arizona State, pending approval from the ASU president, which seems like a formality at this point. But Herm Edwards is going to be the head coach at Arizona State. May he have more success than the recent NFL to college stories have gone. Lovie Smith is an example that hasn't really worked out. But the word is he's going to retain all the assistant coaches on the Arizona State staff, and he's just going to Graham out, Edwards in, and that's going to be it. So we'll see how that shakes out. Texas A&M, Kevin Sumlin's out, and he got a big chunk of dough. His buyout was very interesting, where he basically gets all his money that he's owed in 30 days, and none of that money gets taken away if he gets a job somewhere else. So good on Kevin Sumlin and his agent for that negotiation. Who's in? Word, the big elephant in the room out there is Jimbo Fisher, Florida State's head coach. The word out there is that he's already agreed to the contract with the Aggies, and he's just playing out this game Saturday they have against Louisiana Monroe to try to get bowl eligible. If it's not Jimbo, Chad Morris maybe from SMU, but I believe it's going to be Jimbo Fisher, and we'll get into what that means in a little bit. Couple of interim head coaches had those tags removed. Georgia Southern showed some promise in their last couple of games, so they're going to keep Chad Lunsford, who was their interim coach, as the new head coach. Same with Ole Miss and Matt Luke. Ole Miss has raised his salary to like $3 million a year, which will be making one of the lower paid coaches in the SEC. But they're getting the fourth highest assistant coaching pool in the nation, so that should be very attractive to coaches out there to go to Ole Miss. But who knows what those sanctions are going to be when the NCAA finally decides to hand those down. Florida hired Dan Mullen. He was their former offensive coordinator when Tim Tebow was the quarterback at Florida. He leaves Mississippi State. It appears to be that he was their third choice behind Chip Kelly and Scott Frost. After they both said no, Dan Mullen was it. Replacing Dan Mullen at Mississippi State will be Joe Moorhead, who was the offensive coordinator at Penn State, former head coach at Fordham. Very creative offensively, but we'll see how he does in the SEC. Rice has fired head coach David Bailiff after 11 seasons. He's out. Per Bruce Feldman, keep an eye out there for Stanford assistant coaches Mike Bloomgren and Lance Anderson. And the only reason I'm even talking about Rice's head coaching job here is because of this other name that he mentioned, which interests me, is South Carolina offensive coordinator Kurt Roper, who's a former Rice player. I'm not going to lie to you. It would not hurt my feelings to see Kurt Roper take this job, as long as he didn't take any other assistants with him. I'm not a fan of Kurt Roper's play calling most of the time, so to see him go would not hurt my feelings. Oregon State, as of today, is expected to hire Washington offensive coordinator Jonathan Smith. There had been some word floated out that Dennis Erickson may come out of retirement to coach there. Why? 71 years old. Don't need that guy coaching anymore. UCLA, I don't know if I even talked about this last week, but they did hire Chip Kelly after firing Jim Mora Jr., and that's going to be the biggest coaching win of this offseason. Chip Kelly won big at Oregon, failed in the NFL, but comes back. He'll come back after taking a half year off to work for ESPN. He'll come back to college refreshed and probably scare the shit out of everybody else in the Pac-12, and he should. We talked about Florida State and what if Jimbo Fisher leaves. Well, the first name you heard talked about was Willie Taggart, the one who's been at Oregon for 1 year after coaching at USF in Western Kentucky and winning at both of those schools. But I believe Taggart's probably going to get a big raise out of Oregon after all this is said and done. So, presume Scott Frost was going to Nebraska, but is he waiting to see what happens at Florida State? Because Florida State's one of the premier coaching jobs in the nation. So maybe Frost is holding out for that. If not, Jeff Brom at Purdue could be a name that you hear. 1 year at Purdue, got them bowl eligible this year. So we'll see about that. But could be crazy there that Florida and Florida State both changing head coaches this year possibly. But maybe Jimbo just wants to change the scenery. Has he worn out his welcome in Tallahassee? I mean, the guy's won big there. So, I mean, I don't know. But we'll see. And last but not least, let's talk about the trash dumpster fire that is Tennessee and their football program right now. Fired Butch Jones. First 0-8. First 8-loss. The first time they've lost 8 games in a season ever. So this has quite literally been the worst season ever for Tennessee football. So let's run through the names that have said no. John Gruden. I told y'all that shit wasn't going to happen. I told y'all that weeks ago. John Gruden was not going to be the head coach of Tennessee. John Gruden's not going to be the head coach of Tennessee. I told you. Dan Mullen said no. Scott Frost said no. Apparently they had a deal in place for Ohio State defense coordinator Greg Schiano, former coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, former head coach at Rutgers. But when that was announced, basically a fan revolt got started. And it just went on and on all day. Sunday, I believe it was. And by the end of the day, the deal was off the table. Whatever deal they had for Schiano. Then all day yesterday, it was Mike Gundy. Mike Gundy was going to leave Oklahoma State. He said no, probably going to get more money. Today, all day, it was Jeff Brom's leaving Purdue, going to Tennessee. Now it looks like that's out. There was also talk that they wanted David Cutcliffe, but he said, no, I'm going to retire at Duke. Can't blame him. So now the new name is NC State head coach Dave Doran, who has been about as successful in the ACC as Butch Jones was in the SEC. So good luck with that, I guess. Also heard talks of maybe Southern Cal offensive coordinator T. Martin, who's a former national championship winning quarterback with the Volunteers, possibly getting a shot. Maybe Mike Norvell. Maybe Kevin Sumlin. I mean, I don't know what Tennessee's going to do, but it's just horrible. They're a horrible program right now. And it looks like they're not very competently run. So, good luck, Vol Nation, I guess. But anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of the Cheat Meal. We had a lot of fun talking this with these head coaches. The regular season of college football is almost over with, and that sucks. That really does. But we'll get to the bowl games and the playoffs. I'll have a big bowl game preview in a couple weeks. I'll probably have, like I said, that'll probably be a 2-parter like I did last year. But it's going to be fun talking about all these bowl games, and then we'll have I'll update all the underclassmen. Probably do a once a week thing there, either on the podcast or on here. We'll talk about it sometime, and I'll start updating the list on the website as I go. Senior Bowl invites, another 11 this week. You can see that at deepfrieddraft.com. So yeah, regular season winding down, postseason will get cranking up, and then it'll be, it never ends. It really never ends. But this show's about to end. So as always, follow me on Twitter at deepfrieddraft. Facebook.com/deepfrieddraft. Search YouTube for Deep Fried Draft, The Cheat Meal, Brian Bosarge, any of those. Click subscribe so you get notified when this video goes up and videos just like it. Also, if you're using iOS, download the Bumpers app in the App Store, and you can subscribe to my podcast there, The Cheapest Meal, or Deep Fried Draft. Brian, but it's under something there. Hit subscribe there, and you'll get notified when my podcasts go up. Those usually go up on Mondays. I don't know if I got anything extra going up this week. Next week we'll probably do some more updates. Maybe another mock draft next week. I don't know. No promises, but we'll see. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. Have a good night.